You've all heard the spiel before. Persona is a widely acclaimed series, endlessly praised for many reasons, be it the masterful soundtracks, heartfelt stories, and more important to today's topic, the relatable and endearing characters. Though with every character arc, you need that moment that pushes them past the point of no return, where they cross that threshold and change in a way that sets them on their journey. The awakenings are an aspect of these games that are unmistakably iconic, moments which tend to be regarded as some of the most memorable and artistically rich within their individual narratives. Each game handles its own unique approach to this topic, but today we're focusing on the one that honed in on the stylish portrayal and ran with it, Persona 5. Now, when I say Persona 5 here, I'm actually talking about two games, notably Persona 5 Royal and the spin-off sequel, Persona 5 Strikers. Both of these games commit fully to using these moments as landmark developments for their characters, yet do it with a flair that not only fits in line with the era's usual extravagance, but proceeds to be some of the best displays of impassioned style by a long shot. So, as an excuse to gush about these games, I'll be ranking the P5 Awakenings from worst to best, and joining me, as per usual, is...
Think fast, Chuckle Nuts.
Huh? Senor, she's in this one again.
Hey, how's it going?
To clarify what exactly we're ranking here, this list is including both Persona 5 Royal and Strikers, and obviously spoilers are ahead. This will mainly count any scene that serves as our first reveal and introduction of a character's persona. So some of these entries aren't exactly awakenings, but they're given the same sort of fanfare, so making the distinction was arbitrary.
We also aren't going to be including any awakenings that are solely relegated to confidants, since those would be better fit into a confidant ranking, and it would get a bit repetitive to describe every rank 10 scene in a list like this.
With all of that said, it's time we kick off this list with a whimper. Starting with number 18, Robin Hood.
That's it?
Number 17, Pythos. In terms of quote-unquote awakenings within these games, Pythos is about as to the point as you can get. You know, without being that. But that doesn't mean it lacks appeal. Having just met the adorable Sophia, from our perspective as players, we're obviously expecting her to be playable in some fashion. But for the thieves, they have no clue what her deal is. So her barging into enemy fire and suddenly growing some floating vases that shoot lasers? Yeah, that's pretty neat. If anything, it's a cool way to kick off this game's first dungeon and add a bit of intrigue to the AI. But otherwise, a pretty basic example. Good? Good. Next, number 16, Zoro. Okay, I'm gonna be entirely honest, I seriously love this one. Yes, it's this low basically on the principle that it's not really an awakening, and it's only about 15 seconds long. But sweet geez, this one sequence manages to say so much about Morgana in such a short span of time. Zoro, being one of my absolute favorite Persona designs with his ballooning chest and strong posing, feigns the same kind of superiority which Morgana does, and his commanding, suave entrance serves that facade perfectly. Before this, Morgana seems pretty helpless, as if he's just tagging along, aside from some basic knowledge of thievery. But this properly establishes him as a worthy comrade, being the first example of an experienced Persona user we witness, while just as quickly establishing the archetype for his future insecurities. Man, I should really just make that Morgana video already. Are you surprised I had so much to praise about this one? Yeah, everything from here on is a masterpiece. Welcome to the greatest game of all time, folks.
Number 15, Carmen. It's my favorite Persona character ever. Yippee! While far from being the best awakening ever, Ans has always been yet another incredibly memorable part of the first palace for me. Starting with Shadow Kamoshida's taunting, which manages to be both super emotional and especially cruel after everything we've seen On go through up to this point. So getting to see On break free from being Kamoshida's plaything, both literally and metaphorically, feels so amazing to see. On harnessing her Persona's power to break out of the metal restraints before tearing her mask off to summon her newfound power. Then she kicks a freaking sword out of a guard's hand, sending it 10 feet into the air, jumps up, grabs it, and lands by cutting her cognitive self in half. And all of that is elevated by Erika Harlacher's incredible performance. Even with this being the fourth Persona awakening in a relatively short period of time, Ans still manages to be just as triumphant and badass as all the others that came before her. And then there's Carmen herself. Even if you know nothing about the opera that she originates from, her design tells you everything you need to know. She's powerful, sexy, domineering, and most of all, she could shoot fire out of her hands. I mean, I've never seen the Carmen opera, but I'm pretty sure it's canon. She's the exact opposite of Kamoshida's cognition of An, and she's the perfect representation of the strong and sexy villains that An admires so much. So it's no wonder that this is her ideal version of a rebel.
Number 14, Azathoth. So here I'm actually combining two scenes for this slot. Why? It's my video, I can do what I want. Though in reality, you could argue for both scenes as when Maruki actually awakens, and I just think a more compelling image is painted by showing both. It is inarguable that Taketo Maruki is one of the greatest antagonists of all time. This gentle doctor can command a room with nothing but a bag of pretzels and some light emotional manipulation. Every scene with this man is killer, and one of his absolute best is his first glimpse at the power of Azathoth. So much emotion and tension is present as he sees the person he cares about most suffering through her trauma. Billy Kametz, as always, is absolutely killing it in this role, may he rest in peace. Even as Rumi shifts into her newly perceived reality, the breaks in his voice are ever present, even as he feigns a cool head. It's so dang good. The second Azathoth scene, on the other hand, is less impressive, and is probably one of his weakest scenes, to be honest, but that's really not saying much when he's this good. It basically just serves to finish his arc of spiraling into the gentle madman, and he fully realizes that with an eerie confidence. It's also really well capped off by Azathoth's speech. But yeah, this portion is nothing too mind-blowing overall. Unfortunately, this awakening lacks the visual flair which its competitors are graced with. It's honestly impressive it manages to carry its weight this far though. If it was just the second scene, probably second lowest for me, but including the hospital scene.
Number 13, Necronomicon. This is an interesting one to talk about for me, both because it's so different from all the others, but also because of the strong personal and emotional attachment I have for this arc as a whole. After being chased into her palace by the ghosts of Christmas past, Futaba is met by her shadow and the various hieroglyphs that we'd seen throughout the palace, before going up and meeting the rest of the gang on top of the pyramid. There, she's once again confronted by the cognitions of the men in suit who told her all about her mother's supposed suicide. Seeing Futaba relive the traumatic event that shattered her world and caused her to become a shut-in is genuinely heart-wrenching. She's told that she was responsible for her mother's death. She was the cause of her choosing to end it all. It was all her fault. But then her shadow calls out to her, cutting through the lies she'd been fed and insisting she remembers the truth. That she had been gaslit into thinking she was culpable and that her mother hated her. That cognitive version of her mom represents every lie she was ever told and believed about her mom, and her shadow represents the truth of what happened. So having her shadow turn into her persona, the manifestation of all the rebellious anger in her heart towards the shitty adults who trampled upon her life just to protect themselves, is so perfectly fitting. I'd also be remiss to not talk about the aesthetic and thematic parallels that this awakening has with the ones in Persona 4. Hell, Futaba even says she has to face herself. But Persona 5 takes this general concept and adapts it into its own story and themes perfectly. The main reason this one's a bit lower is just because it's not quite as much of a visual spectacle as many of the awakenings that are coming up, but it more than makes up for it in terms of its amazing character building.
Number 12, Adam Cadmon. I'm sorry? Neither Maruki Awakening is in the top 10? Blasphemy! Heresy! I'm doxing your entire lineage. What the heck was that? Yes, while this moment is utterly fantastic, the majority of what makes this encounter so great is the events that surround it. Oh, but don't let that downplay the insanity of this moment. While not quite as extravagant as Awakenings go, the sheer tension of Maruki's prevailing will causing him to mirror Joker's evolution towards Satanael is glorious. Adam Cadmon is colossal and so freaking menacing. This serves as just another step to show just how far Maruki is willing to go, and nothing will stop him from pursuing his ideal reality. Even the music serves as a call and response, with the prior anthem of Keep Your Faith being warped into Maruki's own declaration through Throw Your Mask Away. This moment is an amazing way to amp up the endgame, and while it's not an unparalleled awakening for me, that entire confrontation is simply unforgettable. Number 11, Milady. Milady? Milady. For as much as this arc gets dogpiled on, it's got one major thing going for it: this scene. Finally giving Haru the literal spotlight, the scene is far better than it's often given credit for. Kunikazu Okumura is fittingly apathetic to Haru's pleas up to this point, and in P5, cognition matters a lot. So then we have Sugimura, Haru's arranged, deranged soon-to-be spouse, who Okumura sees without distortion, knowing exactly who he is and what he aims to do. And that disgusting disregard only gets furthered once the man does distort. becoming yet another tool for the palace ruler to further his industry. Then there's Haru, stuck between the throes of compliance and rebellion. But once she sees how little her father truly cares, she finally completes her awakening, using this bold theatrical style befitting of a stage tragedy, spotlight and all. It all has such a gorgeous presentation style. And as she vows to stand against her oppressor with a flourish of rose petals, the intensity and determination she wields fully fits into the mold of the heroes you've seen her idolize so much. Oh, and she's packing heat. I'll also just always love so many of the one-liners dropped, be it the subservient puppet line or the final note with all the thieves. This arc may be the weakest of this game, but moments like this are a reminder of how much it still has to offer. Number 10, Cendrillon. Kinda. Holy crap, the fact that this manages to be so potent with symbolism while not giving away its twist, the scene is an utter triumph. Kasumi Yoshizawa finds herself confronted with the cognition of Sumire, displaying a conflict in their commitment to their role, one which the mysterious palace owner does not seem so happy to witness. Their so-called mercy has been taken for granted, and Kasumi hears echoes of all the voices that deride her, always asking for more, telling her she isn't good enough. She'll never be good enough. But nothing keeps Kasumi down. That's the one thing Yoshizawa knows about the shoes she's stepped into. And her assertion to stand against those who reject their shared dream brings us the birth of Cendrillon. Gosh, even just describing this awakening makes me poetic. But really, the way this Cinderella story is told is so brilliant. And although Kasumi is aware of the strife that can follow the path she's paved, this determination brings us a painless, magical awakening that demonstrates the power of the ever so perfect Kasumi. I really love this one, and it was the moment that sold her character's inclusion for me. Though it's only a matter of time before the clock strikes midnight. Number 9, Captain Kidd. If I can use one word to describe Ryuji's awakening, it would be raw. Seriously though, while this awakening is lacking in the gimmicks that many future ones have, what it does have is an overwhelming intensity to it all. Kamoshida is so endlessly hateable as an antagonist, and as you witness the crushing abuse which this monster has caused so many to suffer through, be it Ryuji or so many of the peers he cares about, you're finally graced with the teen tearing his vocal cords in anger. There's this constant droning noise that lingers through the scene, Ryuji writhing on the floor and crying out in anguish, making you question just how long he's been holding in this rage. Then the overwhelming nature of his rebellion finally bursts through in an impassioned explosion. And once he lets loose, Ryuji looks more delighted than we've ever seen him. Captain Kidd says it all. There are few symbols as spiritually tied to rebellion as a skull, let alone him being a literal pirate. Ryuji, the captain, and even his ship all share the same toothy smirk that says 1,000 words. This awakening is defined by its overwhelming rage, while still representing that defiance towards those who seek to hold him down. And this awakening, to me, sets the standard for the tone and themes going forward. Hoist the flag, Ryuji. Yo ho.
I like to be a pirate's life for me.
Number 8, Cendrillon. For real this time. People don't talk about this scene enough. Me included, actually. And that's a massive shame because this scene is flooded with so much emotion and tension. Having witnessed so much of Sumire's struggle, all her insecurities and trauma, everything she's ran from in desperation, it all comes to a head as her persona rejects her call. The music is reduced to the song Regret, and we truly feel Sumi's confrontation with herself and how she'll pursue her future. Gone is the painless, magical awakening. Sumire tears her mask off in visceral fashion, not last seen since Joker's. P5 is fantastic at showing us these densely emotive expressions, and the sheer intensity in her glare is a stark example of that. I just absolutely adore how this pact is sealed between the two. Cendrillon extended her hand with a warning on their first meeting, and now Sumire extends her own hand towards the sky, reaching out to both her Cendrillon persona and her Kasumi persona to bring out their true self. This completes that Cinderella tale in such a gorgeous way, and I'm surprised I always forget how much I love this one.
Number 7, Johanna.
A persona?
No, dude. That's a bike?
Need I say more? Every Persona Awakening always gives this amazing feeling of catharsis, where after seeing our hero get beat down by the hardships in their life, we finally get to see them let loose and embrace their rebellious spirit. And nowhere is that more pronounced than with Makoto and Johanna. After spending the past few hours of the game watching Makoto get verbally beat down by pretty much every person in her life, including our main characters, here in the metaverse, Shadow Kaneshiro shows up to threaten her livelihood and hit on every single one of her insecurities. This is Makoto's last straw, and it feels amazing to watch such a clear anger boil to the surface. Kaneshiro isn't like the best villain ever, like at all, but he works perfectly in this scene for how good of a foil he manages to be for Makoto. Up to this point, we've seen just how physically painful awakening to a persona is, so Makoto taking it like an absolute champion is awesome. She stomps on the ground and smashes a floor tile like it's nothing in a fit of pent-up rage. And then she went from Little Miss Student Council Prez, who always did what she was asked and hid her emotions to the point that she was nearly in tears multiple times, to a fucking Mad Max biker chick. This scene is an amazing subversion of what we come to expect from Makoto, and she absolutely earns the title of Queen after everything she went through. It's one of the most badass moments in any Persona game, and it only being at number 7 is kind of crazy, but that's just how great these scenes really are, that Makoto isn't even top 3.
Number 6, Valjean. Persona 5 Strikers didn't need to go this hard with its new cast. Zenkichi joins the ranking of baby girl icons alongside Yunaka Fire Emblem and Saul Goodman. This game does a phenomenal job exploring not just the impact of corruption on an individual, but the broader impact that those actions can snowball into. Zenkichi embodies this perfectly as his daughter, the monarch of his jail, scolds him viciously for his self-preservation in the aftermath of his wife's murder, despite the man trying to convince himself that he holds justice to the highest standard. Being faced with the truth that he hadn't considered the other victims at play, instead playing ignorant to protect his daughter, it all begins to form cracks in his resolve. And then, a voice calls out.
Anyone but a man of justice.
The way the shadow of Valjean manifests itself is euphoric, chastising Zenkichi and breaking him down to test how much he truly values the justice he's dedicated his life to. It's an emotional gut punch, but that's hardly acknowledging the main scene itself. Zenkichi's shadow eerily wanes in, glowing eyes piercing through the man and pushing him further beyond until his newfound resolve blasts out of him, manifesting in a gorgeous theatrical mask. This scene brought an already endearing character up to the ranks of my all-time favorites. And there are few things quite as satisfying as seeing him tear off the miserable chains that had held him down. Or, miserable chains? Like, it's like the musical.
Loki!
Robbie Damon. That's it. That's all I have to say. Think I can think of any other string of words that can convey it better? No. You fool. You idiot. You rhombus. If I need to keep rambling though, this moment is the scene that makes it catchy for me. While in vanilla Persona 5, many people were split on if they actually found him well written, I always found the scene to be the blueprint for what his character was meant to be. Frankly speaking, I've always adored this little freak of nature. At this point, the undesirable child is in pure desperation. Despite his confidence and rage, he's once again bested by the trickster, the one who has everything he's ever wanted. Akechi is the ace detective, a celebrity, the hero. So the fact that this addict trash could somehow have the joy that he lacks, Akechi snaps, more than he already had. And as the pieces of his role as the Black Mask fall into place, and he declares his desire to unrelentingly tear us to pieces, we are greeted with pandemonium.
Here, I'll show you who I really am. Come, Loki!
Like, seriously, what can I even say? This exploding tension, the lighting, the godlike voice acting, one of the greatest Persona designs of all time, and this culmination of everything your bond has led up to. It's a perfect cacophony, and every rewatch has me staring in awe as he flails around in his psychotic state. This is the true Goro Akechi, and he's Robbie Damon.
Number 4, Pandora. To see a spin-off character ranked this high, to me, is a real testament to just how well Strikers manages to capture everything great about Persona 5, and that includes the Awakenings. Cause holy crap, this is the single best moment in the entire game in my opinion. After learning Sophia's origins and Ichinose taking over her programming, seeing Sophia push back against her creator and protect her friends is amazing. She comes to the realization that she always had a heart and chooses to use this heart to fight for the friends who she's come to love and care about so much. She rejects the title of doll, fully embracing her humanity. And then Ichinose's strong and emotional reaction to all this in turn proves that she had a heart this whole time as well. Oh my god, it's so good. This is a side thing, but I didn't bring it up during the jail ranking video, so I want to do it here. I really love this message that there's no one way to have a heart or to express emotions. That just because you don't react to things in the way that people expect of you, that doesn't mean you're a heartless or uncaring person. I don't know, as someone on the autism spectrum, seeing the sequel to my favorite game ever tackle the subject, it meant a lot to me. Anyway, back to the actual awakening itself. Sophia's pained voice, just barely being able to fight her programming, practically begs for a heart strong enough to choose her own path in life. And in response, she hears,
"Can you wield that strength?"
I adore the directing in this scene. So we have all the parts of Pythos spinning around Sophia with the camera coming down to show us the thieves' reaction to what's going on. But every time Pythos moves past the camera, it zooms in and then goes over to Ichinose. Then the view moves high above the action along with Pythos before the camera zooms back down to Sophia, and we see the name of her new persona written across her mask. It's just so fucking cool! Megan Taylor Harvey absolutely knocks her role as Sophia and Pandora out of the park. She voiced Ringo Soul Hacker, so of course she's amazing.
I just thought it'd be cool to dramatically reveal a load of pizza.
This awakening almost made it to number 3, and if I'm being honest, the only reason it's not there is because Pandora's kind of stupid looking. But that's a minor nitpick and really goes to show just how close this list was. Number 3, Goemon. Man, Yusuke's awakening is something else. After being quite literally dropped into the metaverse, our soon-to-be Phantom Thief is bear witness to the dark, twisted heart of his adoptive father. After spending the past who knows how long trying to deny the horrible things Madarame had done, he comes to realize just how horrible of a man he truly is. Then he gets to confront Madarame's shadow. This scene is simply fantastic. The clear desperation and hurt that could be heard in Yusuke's voice, clearly wanting so badly to not believe everything he's hearing. He wants to have faith in his teacher and the man who raised him, but he can't turn his back on the truth anymore.
Have you finally come to your senses?
God, this is so good. The camera spinning around Yusuke while he swings his body in the opposite direction, with occasional zooms on his face to see his pained expression, makes for such a powerful visual that really captures the headspace Yusuke must be in at this moment. Then, of course, the part this awakening is most well known for. Yusuke falling to the ground and scraping his fingers across the carpet so hard they start to fucking bleed. It makes your skin crawl. It's like the visual equivalent of nails on a chalkboard, but it's so perfect for this moment. Then there's the money shot. Yusuke tears his mask off with elegance and grace, summoning his persona, Goemon. He even gets his own little music cue. The little speech Yusuke gives here, well, it's so perfectly Yusuke. It's artsy and maybe a bit eccentric, but it's powerful, and as is the case with every awakening, it's cathartic, both for him and the audience who've learned so much of his suffering up to this point. The last thing I want to talk about is debatably not really a part of the awakening, but it's the talk that the party has in the lobby after Shadow Madarame flees. Yusuke finally admitting that he was being abused and his work was being stolen, but he never left or said anything because he felt he owed a debt to Madarame. Even now, he still feels he owes Madarame for everything he did. It does an amazing job at setting up Yusuke's story for the rest of the palace and beyond into his confidant and even a bit into Strikers. This entire awakening holds such an emotional weight that few scenes in the game can match, and it's a major reason why it's ranked so highly on the list. Oh, also this bit's funny.
When did my clothes change?
You just noticed that now?
Before we get to our top 2 spots, I'm gonna pull a bit of a Watch Mojo here and throw out some honorable mentions. I would have done this before first place, but Senor said I would, quote, die if I didn't move this back, so all of the Confidant based 2nd and 3rd tier awakenings. Like I said before, they didn't really fit the feel of this video, but I like the part where Ryuji does squats, so we're mentioning them. Every awakening in the P5 anime. You really were a mediocre adaptation, and none of these come close to the game, but an attempt was made, so yeah. Every awakening in the Persona 5 manga. Yeah, this certainly is Persona 5 in manga form. This is at least a better adaptation than the show and the artist need. Okay, no more stalling, time for us to gush.
Number 2, Arsene. The protagonist's awakening is a very important thing to get right in a Persona game. It's the moment where our hero gets to become the hero, and gain the power they'll be using for the rest of our time in the video game. And I would argue Joker's is the best of all of them. After wandering into the metaverse by mistake, Ren and Vulgar Boy are arrested and set to be executed under the orders of Shadow Kamoshida. Ryuji then pushes a guard out of the way and tells you to run. At this point, Ren is confronted with the same situation that put him on probation. Should he save someone who he doesn't even know the first name of yet, even if it means putting himself in harm's way? Ren has spent the past hour of the game being faced with the reality of his situation, seeing the repercussions of the good deed, and deep down, he was clearly regretting it. He's seen what the world does to people who stand up and do the right thing. But even knowing that, he doesn't take the chance to run. And right here, right when he's about to face an even worse fate than everything else the world has thrown at him, he hears a voice.
What's the matter? Are you simply going to watch?
Xander Mobus doesn't get much time to truly shine playing a mute protagonist, but the few times he gets to voice Arsene are simply fantastic. At this moment, Ren remembers what he's always known, that the consequences don't matter. If you see someone in danger, you should always do everything in your power to save them. It's worth mentioning here that even if you choose to say your previous actions might have been a mistake, this happens.
No need for mere words. Show me your true feelings.
In most cases, this would be a silly example of a game giving the illusion of choice to keep the plot chugging, but since a persona is the manifestation of the heart, this acts as just yet another example of the fact that Ren really is a selfless hero, because despite being mute, Ren is an amazing character, but that's a story for another video. Anyway, after all that, we get the most raw moment in the history of fiction. Ugh, where do I even begin? Joker desperately trying to tear the mask off his face and all the blood it leaves behind. The audio design that makes your skin crawl and really feel just how visceral and painful it is. The way you could see the silhouette of Joker's thief attire in the blue flame that consumed him, the fire sliding off him and forming into Arsene, and then Arsene being wrapped in chains until Joker frees him from the shackles of his heart. It's just so fucking cool! And just this shot alone. This fucking shot. When I think of Persona 5, this is always one of the first images that comes to mind. It's iconic. You can go frame by frame in every bit of the sequence of the blood evaporating off Joker's face and it being consumed by the fire, and every frame is a beautiful work of art. This moment is Persona 5 to a T. It represents everything I adore so much about this game, both on the level of story and spectacle. It's an amazing and powerful moment that's so iconic they even used a similar visual for Joker's trailer for Smash Bros. Over the past 5+ years that P5 has existed, I've probably watched this scene well over 100 times, and I never get tired of it. That's why there's no doubt in my mind that Joker has the best awakening in Persona 5.
Wait, but this is number 2.
I know what I said.
Number 1, Satanael. I don't quite know where to start with my feelings on this one. There are vast swaths of opinions on the Yaldabaoth confrontation. Some, like me, adore it wholeheartedly. Others despise it. Yet the one unifying factor we can all agree on is that this moment is freaking awesome! I know a lot of these rankings have been mostly relegated to the specific awakening scenes, but screw you, it's my list. I'm counting this entire final act of the fight as one giant set piece. If you've at all been invested in the story, you've seen just how much horrific crap they've all been through, having literally vanished in horror not too long ago. So now, at the end of the line, and with a perfect payoff to the fansite poll that is so perfectly bursting with vigorous hype, the Phantom Thieves rise, swearing to finish the job that they've started. Fully committing to the visual motif of this game, Joker quite literally breaks free of his chains with a clean snap, forcing a roar out of Arsene, the persona who represents you and all you stand for, before exploding in an instant. The false god grants a brief word of mockery, but it's quickly deflated as the embodiment of rebellion itself descends from the heavens. His outstretched, enormous figure overtaking the scene before a clear parallel is set between Joker and the Demon Lord. Satanael is here to end things. Our beginning is such an uplifting shakeup of Yaldabaoth's theme, and this scene is perfectly designed to match up to the orchestral beats, just begging you to be struck with emotion as each grand chord syncs up with your invulnerable resolve, only seeming to get more and more flush with passion tones as you prepare to finish the job this entire game has led up to. A single bullet forged of every sin you've stood against, now here to smite the demiurge where he stands. And so, with another mimic gesture between Joker and Satanael, and a simple utterance of "Begone," you unleash your final shot. And in gloriously stunning fashion, it all ends with a distilled silence and the view of a beautiful sunset, which you're viewing through a hole in his head. It's perfect. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that fact. To me, this was the moment that solidified my love for this game, let alone my love for art as a whole. While Third Semester may be the arguable peak of this game, this one moment still stands as my undyingly favorite moment that this masterpiece has to offer. So that's all the ranking done and over with. Disagree with anything we said? Yeah, I've been doing YouTube for years. I already read your comment before you even wrote it or finished the video.
Personally, I think you should have,
Like I said, don't even try it. But yeah, I'm glad to have revisited the entire P5 saga and given my thoughts on it. And luckily, I'll never have to update this video because it's not like there's gonna be another, oh gosh dang it!
You never see it come down.